webinar. That controls your audio. If you hit stop or close that window, it causes you to stop hearing the presentation. Should you can reconnect to the audio, you can go to the Communicate menu on your Event Center window and select Join Audio Broadcast. Or if you have other assistance, please feel free to send a message to the host or to all panelists through the box there, and we can help you out. There are a few other tips you can try if you can't hear things. First, make sure that your computer speakers are on, that your headphones are plugged in. Make sure the sound on your computer is not muted, and if you still are not hearing audio, you can go to the Web menu and select the audio broadcast under the Communicate menu. About 1 hour, and we will include a question and answer session at the end. Moderate using the chat box. During an answer, you'll be able to put your questions into the chat box, and the presenters will help answer those questions. You can feel free to chat your questions at any point in the next hour. If you can, please make sure that you direct your questions to all panelists, and that way all our presenters will be able to see your questions. Okay, so without further ado, share my desktop so that you can see my presentation. There may be a minute of delay depending on your internet connection before you see what. Okay, so in front of you, what you should see is kind of a diagram. And so let me up and just say that we developed this webinar on fellowship applications and personal statements to help you feel more prepared to apply to graduate fellowships and to understand the different components that are typical of fellowship applications and tips to strengthen your applications. And so I'm going to begin with an overview of the typical components of fellowship applications. And then we have our first guest speaker, who is Jörg Schlatter, who is with the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. He'll do an overview of the program, including tips on creating your research statement and personal statements. And our second guest speaker, who is Dr. Brandon Jones, from Environmental Protection Agency, and he will discuss opportunities at EPA, and he'll also discuss a little bit about how a typical fellowship panel review process works and what reviewers are typically looking for. And before we get started, we want a quick circle. We just want to ask a few questions that help to understand where you are in your process of looking for fellowships and how we can best serve you with resources and information that we have. And I'm going to make more work.
So, but we'll find out.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Siegfried. I'm also with the Institute for Broadening Participation, and it's great to see so many attendees, about 40 of us on the call. This poll will gather information to learn about you and to help us frame this webinar as we go. So I've just opened a poll. You should see it on your screen now. Questions I'll run through. If there are additional participants listening in on the call that you initiated, just let us know how many there are in our new group. Next, role, undergrad, back, grad student master's, grad student PhD, faculty or other. Category, does your research discipline best fit? And we know there are many, many more categories, but these are just the broadest ones, and that'll help us for the area. And finally, previously applied for a graduate school fellowship, yes or no? I'll give more seconds to answers, and then I'll try to share this poll so that we can see for participating. The poll will close in about 10. And it should results up in just 1 sec. There we go. The people.
Sure.
To summarize what we're looking at.
Most are graduate students in the sciences, but 30% are in engineering, and on the have you previously applied question.
It's a good idea who we're talking to. So thanks very much for doing that. Liv?
Great. Thanks, everyone. Okay. So as I get started, I want to look at this graphic that you see in front of your screen. It's a concept map. And it'll be available to everyone online along with a recording of the webinar and presenter slides. This map online, several of the concepts, so each sort of shape is a concept. Each concepts have associated resources that you can click on. You'll see there's an icon. This one looks like a little book. You can click and have PDF handouts, website links, other useful resources. So explore this concept map online to sort of dig in and look at those associated concepts. So start by talking about kind of creating an overall game plan as you're applying to fellowship. In particular, I'm going to suggest that you draft out a multi-year strategic plan for graduate education. And that may sound a little bit over the top, a strategic plan, but you need to remember that especially a doctoral program can last as long as 4, 5, 6 years. And it's rare to find a single funding source that will cover you for that entire period of time. So you need to start early doing some research and asking questions like, what fellowships are you eligible for now? What will you be eligible for later in your degree program? What fellowships can be deferred? And deferred means that you accept the award now but wait a year to draw on funds. What fellowships, if any, can be used simultaneously with other funding sources? Questions that you want to consider asking yourself if you are searching for these programs. You also want to note eligibility requirements and plan ahead there. Some fellowships fund you early in their degree program, and others only will fund you later in your degree program. And a complete package will give you a better idea of what your options are during the different parts of your degree program. In terms of searching for programs, you'll start searching for programs and involves devoting some significant time. Programs that match your disciplinary and research interests, but also your eligibility requirements and noting all their deadlines and application requirements. I'm not actually going to go into depth with tips on searching fellowships during this webinar. However, I do want to point you to our website, pathwaystoscience.org, where you can search over 45 different fellowships, portable fellowships. And we also have a great resource library on that website, within which we have a recording of a previous webinar we've done, which was funding your graduate education. So an entire webinar on funding your graduate education with some more detailed tips on searching for programs. Explore that. Management and creating a calendar of deadlines are both really important topics. Deadlines for fellowships are typically very early in the fall, basically a full year before you need to use the funding. So as an example, if you are an undergraduate student and you're planning to go straight on to graduate school, you'll be applying to fellowships early in the fall of your senior year. So that will be coming up for some of you. To the time that you spend searching for programs, you can expect to spend the equivalent of probably a couple hours a day for a month or so on your statement and personal statement. And also need to set aside some time to request letters of recommendation and to obtain your transcripts. students to think of the fellowship application process kind of as an extra course and to devote time accordingly. Sources might be your faculty advisors, really talk to about your research ideas. The advisors may have advice not only on how to craft your research statement, but types of fellowships you want to pursue. Ask them if they'll be willing to review your research statement. And faculty in particular who have been on fellowship review panels, go to fellow graduate students and maybe postdocs who have secured funding in the past. Ask them what made their application successful. Don't forget to also use your general campus resources like your writing center to help write compelling and grammatically correct research and personal statements, and really put together that policy package. To kind of the typical application components. But I'm going to give an overview of these application components, and then our guest speakers are going to go into depth in a few different areas. Application will ask for a research statement. If you are an undergraduate senior and you're applying to fellowships and you're a little concerned that you don't know exactly what your graduate research will be, that's okay. Undergraduate reviewers will be looking for your ability to design a sound research statement and pursuing, but they understand that the specifics of your research project may change once you know the university at which you've been accepted to graduate school. So work with your faculty advisors to put together a research statement and focus on your ability to design a clear and organized plan. For fellowships, you'll be asked to touch on several different areas. One, intellectual merit, and that's kind of the question, why does your research question matter? And more compelling than it just hasn't been done before, and something to discuss with your faculty mentor or advisor. That is often important. It might be called broader impacts, or it might be called impacts on society or community engagement. And this is kind of how will your research project and findings contribute to society. So does your project make an important contribution to communicating science to the public? Will you be serving as a role model to other students, or possibly you're conducting some community or student outreach? And talking about what you plan to do, if you have participated in these kinds of activities, have experience in this area, even in small ways, you should definitely reference that in order to demonstrate your commitment and experience area. To always keep in mind is the relevance of your project to the funding agency or the organization that you're applying to. So your audience here, and take the time to do some research on each organization or funding you're applying to. You make sure that you highlight how your proposed research aligns with the organization's mission and strategic goals, which you will usually be able to find on their website, or sometimes in the fellowship application instructions. And appropriate, for example, with NASA, this is really key. You want to discuss how you make use of the organization's facilities, so maybe their labs, their instrumentation, and part of the fellowship is partnering with one scientist. You want to discuss how that's a really important component of your application. Usually preparedness as well. And normally you'll want to include information on how you've prepared yourself to undertake this research, so how you're competent to do what you're proposing to do. If you have research experience like a summer research program internship, definitely you should emphasize that, as well as the skill knowledge you've acquired through your coursework and any other relevant experiences. Statement from the research statement. And often this is a place where you can use kind of a more active voice and a less scholarly tone, and you can discuss how you became interested in the science in your field. If qualities like you work to support yourself during college, you're a first-generation student, or you have other unique skill sets, a place where you can kind of highlight that information. It's a place can reiterate some of those broader activities that you might have been involved in. You can discuss your career aspirations and the way in which the fellowship will help you achieve those aspirations. Let me go back because I kind of skipped over address gaps. This is also a place where you can kind of address gaps in your, maybe in your transcript or somewhere else in your academic history. I saw a few questions come in on the pre-registration of the webinar about this topic, and it was, how do you address sort of, and I think the personal statement is a great place where you can not make excuses for yourself, but use those gaps and came back from those gaps or rose above some challenges that you faced at some academic career, to use those experiences to demonstrate your commitment to your science, passion for your research topic, and your sort of steadfastness and commitment overall. So you can turn gaps into a positive thing. Of most actions is the recommendation, and it's very important. And so the question that comes to mind is kind of, who should ask for a letter of recommendation? Some likely candidates are professors that you've had in class, if you've done a project, or you've done research, for example, summer research, summer internship. You can ask an advisor, or other supervisors that have been related to internships, research experiences, or other academic work. Thing that's really important is giving your letter writers plenty of time, if possible, a couple of months. And it can be helpful to provide your letter writer with a full list of all positions and programs that you are seeking letters for, along with their addresses and their deadlines and the letter writer has everything in front of them at once. They want to sit down and get all their letters done right at once. They choose to do them one at a time, but it's helpful to give them the option. That you can prepare and provide your letter writer is a packet of information about yourself. So including things like a list of courses that you took with that professor, the grades that you received in those courses, your resume. It's find the recommenders of the interactions you've had with them or experiences that you've had with them. And a little reminder, they have a lot of students that they interact with. They're usually glad to see your resume and a list of the courses that you participated in with them, and some reminders maybe about a research project that you worked on under their supervision. Easy as possible for those recommenders. If electronic submission is available, let them know. If the letters have to be mailed, provide a pre-addressed stamped envelope for them and their necessary materials. That standard is waiving your right to view a letter, so all the letters be sent out directly to them. So don't, it's totally standard, and I would encourage you to use your right to view the letter. And you'll need to do some follow-up. You can contact the admissions or the online, you can log into your online application to see if the letter has been received, and if it hasn't, able to confirm in that way. It's to follow up with your recommender in a sort of pleasant but persistent manner. So they're busy folks, but your best interest in mind. They want to see you succeed, so they're okay with persistent reminders. And say thank you once the application process is through. If you have been successful, that's great. Your recommenders want to hear about it. They want to celebrate your success. And if the application wasn't successful, they want to know about that too, and they might have some great recommendations on how to strengthen your application for next time. And so it's about cultivating relationships with recommenders, because oftentimes students come to us and say, I don't know, I'm not really sure how to build a relationship with someone so that they can write me a strong letter of recommendation. My classes are huge, and that kind of thing. One thing helpful is to attend office hours of the members whose courses you're taking, or even other faculty members who are not taking but you're interested in their research. It's okay to come to office hours even if you don't have questions, and it's great to expand your network beyond your faculty advisor. Look for opportunities to become involved in curricular activities like hosting a brown bag lunch or an evening speaking seminar or outreach type of event. And so those things take time, but they're beneficial in cultivating those relationships. A dirty overview of application components. And I'll turn it over to our first guest speaker, who is Dr. Flatterer. He's Program Director in the Division of Graduate Education at the Social Science Foundation. And you just need to bring up your presentation.
Liv, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oops.
I'm glad. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. So what I'm going to do is I will give you a brief overview of the program, and I will point out very important aspects which relate to the personal statement and the research statement, which both are required during the GRFP application process. Are you?
Sorry, a little delay. I got all thrown off when my computer had to reboot right before the webinar. I think you should see it showing up.
Okay. Not a problem. Right?
I slide forward. And
perfect.
Okay, great.
Okay. Maybe you go immediately to the first slide, to the next slide.
There we go.
Not a problem at all. I would like to remind you all that there are two very important goals for the GRFP, for the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. The first one is to select, to recognize, and financially support individuals who have demonstrated the potential to be scientists and engineers early in their careers. And I would like to say who have demonstrated the potential to be high-achieving scientists and engineers. So it focuses on individuals of the program. This is to broaden participation in STEM of underrepresented groups, including women, minorities, persons with disabilities, and veterans.
To interrupt you, we got a chat that someone's having a little trouble hearing you. Maybe, I'm not sure if you're on speaker, or maybe just speak up a little bit.
Is it better now? Okay.
Great.
Okay. So it's to realize and to really embrace both programmatic goals that we would like to support individuals and we would like to broaden participation. Next slide, please. Certain key elements. The key element which I would like to mention is the GRFP award is a 5-year award which includes $138,000. During 5 years, there are 3 years of support included. Per year, the awardee, the GRFP fellow, would receive $34,000, and the institution where the fellow conducts his or her research will receive $12,000 per year. Also, during the 5-year award period, the P fellow has the opportunity to take advantage of 2 fantastic professional development activities. The first one is called GROW, Graduate Research Opportunities Worldwide, where the student could go abroad to one of the participating countries and conduct mission-related research abroad. The professional development opportunity would be GRIP, the Graduate Research Internship Program. We're partnered up with federal agencies and laboratories which would host GRFP fellows for, let's say, 10 weeks to up to 12 months in their facilities. that time, the GFP fellow would have the opportunity to conduct mineral-related research, but most importantly, to expand the professional network and to figure out if maybe later on a job for the government or within the government would be something interesting for this individual. Also, very briefly, all fellows have access to supercomputers and could take advantage of the Career Life Balance Award. What that means is if you go on maternity leave or paternity leave or any family, you could ask NSF to pay for up to 3 months a research technician who really continues with your work in your laboratory while you're at home taking care of either yourself in terms of maternity or paternity leave for the baby or the sick family member. So the next slide, which actually highlights very unique features of this program. The GFP award to individuals. It doesn't go to institutions. It doesn't go to PIs. No, it goes to you. To you, the applicant, the awardee, the fellow. You have actually the choice on which project you would like to work on. You can pick your advisor. And you could pick the also, you could take your fellowship and say after 1 year, okay, started my graduate work at this institution, but I feel that I could be even more productive at a different institution. So you could take your GFP fellowship and move from institution A to institution B. It means that you conduct your research at an accredited U.S. institution, and your research base graduate degree has the goal to get a master's degree or a PhD degree. And of the competitiveness of this GFP program, in 2015 we received a little bit more than 16,000 applications, and we were able to give 2,000 fellowships. That means the success rate is 12.5%. And I could imagine if some of you immediately think, oh, that's a very low success rate. I'm not sure if I apply for that award. But let me tell you, and I'm pretty sure Brenton will say exactly the same for his award, every time you sit down and think about your career, think about the research which you would like to do during grad studies, you craft documents, including personal statements and research statements, learn about yourself, are able to focus more than others who did not sit down and craft application packages for any award. So either way, either you get the award, that's fantastic, but even if you don't get the award, there is a lot of skill training affiliated with crafting an application package. Let's move on to the next slide, actually. And which you have to know regarding the GFP program is written down in the solicitation. And actually, I sent this PowerPoint presentation on Monday to Liv. And yesterday, we published our new solicitation. That means the solicitation at the top of that page is not the current one. And let me give you briefly the current number. That would be NSF 15997. And you find this solicitation online if you type in nsf.gov/GFP, and you would receive immediately the solicitation, which is the buffer for the upcoming competition. So the solicitation includes program information, eligibility requirements, and so on, everything what is on that slide. Let me talk briefly about eligibility. If you could move on to the next slide, that would be great. In order to apply for GFP, you must be a U.S. citizen or have permanent residency. You wish to pursue research-based master and PhD, degree in a STEM field, then you should be enrolled in an accredited U.S. institution by fall next year. So you're eligible to apply if you're undergrad, senior, or have your baccalaureate degree and you didn't start your graduate studies yet. So you are eligible as an undergrad student. Also, if you're a first or second year graduate student, you would be eligible to apply. You would be even eligible to apply if you were at some point in grad school and had to drop out for about years. Then you could go back and apply for GRFP. You see all the fields of study which are supported by GRFP, ranging from chemistry to STEM education. And you find all those fields in the solicitation. Therefore, let me move on so I could talk a little bit about the statements and all the GRFP application components. Can be very good. So there are 4 components for the application package. The personal statement with a 3 limit, and please embrace those numbers. If you submit a personal statement which is 3 pages plus 1 line or just 1 word, you'll be reviewed. There is a 3-page limit, and I encourage you to really embrace all the requirements for those documents which are outlined in the solicitation. The research statement has a 2-page limit. You also have to upload transcripts and 3 letters of references. The application deadline is this year in the last week of October. It depends on your field. We have 4 different application deadlines, so you might check out the solicitation to see a little bit or see exactly when your specific deadline would be. Next slide. So all documents which you submit will be evaluated in terms of intellectual merit. That means actually the reviewers see that you would be able to advance knowledge within or across different fields. The second area is broader impacts. The reviewer must have a very positive feeling that you have benefited society and you will still continue benefiting society or enhancing desired societal outcomes. The impacts in intellectual merit should be both addressed in the personal and in the research statement. Let's talk next about the personal statement. As I indicated, in the statement you should describe your and professional experiences that really helped you to get motivated to pursue a STEM career and how those experiences actually prepared you for your future challenges. Talk about projects you worked on, research project, industrial projects, other professional projects. About what the project was, which part did you play in that project, because, well, it's very likely that you were the only person working on that project. It should be clear that you played a part and that you're a good team player. Talk about where this research or that project was done, why it's actually important that you did that project, did your part of that project fit into the whole research endeavor, what have you learned? And also you should talk about advanced coursework. Also, personal statement, you should write about your career aspirations and goals. So what is your long-term career goal? It could be really anything, and ranging from professor at an academic institution to I want to be a founder of a company when I have this idea. Don't be too specific, otherwise people will pick up that idea. No, but you might want to become an entrepreneur. And in order to really reach that goal, you feel you have to have experience in that particular field of research to develop your ideas to enter the professional world as an entrepreneur. That's the research statement. It's a research. It should be very clear to the reviewer that you actually wrote the research statement, not your advisor. So again, you have to write that document, and it's this document to demonstrate that you have a broader understanding of a specific discipline, of a specific project that you can think and communicate scientifically. You should be able to craft a very hypothesis, because reviewers are happy to see hypothesis-driven research. You should be able to craft aims, specific aims, 1, 2, maybe even 3 aims. It really depends. And my recommendation is to work closely with advisors, either if you're already a graduate student, with your current advisor to the good understanding how you might want to sell your ideas, but also you could take advantage of your other mentors which you had previously, and help you to make a very clear research statement. Again, your own words, do not use the words of your research advisor. Let's move to the next slide. You should start early, so this webinar would be a good time to start. Prepare an application. Read the solicitation not only once, twice. Read it at least 10 times. Take a text marker and highlight all the important parts. Look up the different NSF-GRFP websites, so the official one, nsf.gov/GRFP or nsfgrfp.org, and pay attention to the merit review criteria. This webinar will be available online. Also, the slides will be available online. And so far, I think I will stop right now here and turn it over to Brendan, and I will be very happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Brandon Jones. He's Assistant Center Director of the Office of Research and Development at the Environmental Protection Agency. And Brandon, let me just pull up your slides.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear. Okay? Okay, great. The slides, I just want to thank the organizers of the webinar for a few minutes, and most of what you mentioned in his presentation regarding content of application and tips, I certainly echo. What I plan to do is go over EPA's programs, the two that focus on graduates, and that be brief, and go into just a couple of slides related to the review process, which you'll get near the end of his discussion, to give everyone a of how EPA handles its review. It's a little different than, say, NSF's program or some others. So, Liv, if we can go to the next slide. I'll be talking about what program that it administers or manages. Two of those programs are grads who are focused on it, and then we have our AAAS and ASPPH programs, which are those with advanced degrees who are their postgraduate work and some professional development opportunities. We'll be focusing on the undergraduate program and the STAR graduate program, just background and some information about the funding and such, and then we'll go into the review slides. Please. focused on to attend institutions that receive less than $35 million in research and development funding. So it's the GROW program focusing on building capacity in institutions that are low capacity when it comes to research and STEM endeavors. Includes all of the traditional what was minority academic institutions, Black colleges, universities, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions, etc. This particular program, students eligible if they are in their last 2 years or will be in their last 2 years of undergraduate studies. So usually, if there's in college, that's when RFAs in the last 2 years. Well, historically, the RFAs would be posted or come out around the same time as NSF and many of the other agencies post their program. The last couple of years, this has not been the case because of congressional and or White House and EPA programs have been in limbo the last couple of years, and because of that, the announcements have really been a bit challenged. I know applicants because those that have applied have had to rush and apply to an off-cycle announcement, and it's been for the agency to try to get the funding mentioned for the fall. So we're receiving applications in the spring, and we have to try to get the funding in place for those individuals that will be attending school in the fall. So we still are doing the best we can, and we're looking forward to things getting back to normal. Moving on here, there you see the financial breakdown. If you could go to slide 3 quickly. The breakdown for the undergrad program. Those 2 years, you could receive up to $50,000, and they're down for tuition and stipend and expense allowance. The highlight of this fellowship is that there is a built-in 12-week summer internship at any EPA facility of the student or the fellow's choice. And so as Jorg was mentioning about the GRIP program, which is available, or the GROW program, which is available for these fellows to receive professional development experience internationally or domestically with a federal agency, this community for undergraduate students to receive hands-on place-based experiences in EA facilities, labs, or regions. So it's a unique feature. Next slide, please. The topics are there. They're broad topics, sort of general, understanding that these graduate applicants and the application process and content of the application is not as detailed as, say, for graduate fellowship. And the areas we keep them broad so that we give the flexibility for students to apply under certain umbrellas of different disciplines and topic areas. Please. The graduate program is a sibling program to NSF's Graduate Research Fellowship. Provides up to $132,000 over 3 years, and 36, I believe. But actually, it would be 100. No, it is 132. 36, I believe Jorg was saying, if I'm speaking correctly, for NSF. Kind of break ours down. We received 2 years. PhD students are awarded, and the slide there, you see the breakdown for the financial support. One of the selling points for both STAR and grad is the expense allowance. STAR $5,000 for a year of the award. Pro, it was $2,500, and the allowance can be used for registration, international travel, international activities, hiring lab assistants, child care, any related expenses that would offset burden that the fellow may incur while in graduate school. That's sort of what the expense allowance is. Next topic. This might be small, maybe unless you're right on your computer, you can see the font. But you have to pay attention to all the way to the right of the column in gray. The topic areas for the 2015 STAR Fellowship. The whole chart is showing how the topic areas relate to EPA's research and the main programs that EPA supports to fulfill its mission. The fellowship programs, STAR and GROW, really cut across all the main research programs, and we see the applications in areas of drinking water and water resources, as well as global climate change, which shouldn't be a surprise for EPA. So you got that information, and of course the most announcement of all of the topic areas, their descriptions, more detail. Please. And I'll be brief. I think I only have a couple of slides, maybe just this one, not sure. But for these fellows discussing the review process, and these are external reviewers from academia, from the sector, from government, maybe from nonprofit. They're experts in their given disciplines and given topic areas that review applications according to the criteria that have been outlined in the assessment. So I think Jörg mentioned this, but one thing you certainly want to do when you're crafting your application is pay attention to the review criteria announcement, and you are writing your restatement or your research plan those criteria, because those are the criteria that the reviewers will be using to evaluate your application. I believe Liv mentioned, so number one, I believe Liv mentioned this earlier on, make sure you research the organization you're applying to and craft your personal statement and your research plan to align as much as it can the mission that agency or that organization. It says develop the research plan to align with the criteria, which I already mentioned. And then number three, which is number one, you develop your personal statement to align with the mission. Some of the nuances that a lot of the applicants miss, and you kind of want to make sure you focus on so much, because it's supporting science in general, but applying to NASA or NOAA or EPA, you want where you have some of that agency's mission reflected in your application. And so the next slide, EPA, and most of the fellowship funding agencies, because we have two layers of review. Regular external review with the experts from academia, nonprofit, and private sector, and in the first red box, top red box, are the current criteria for the external peer review. So this is, if you were to apply to STAR, this is what you would want to pay attention to as far as crafting your statement. After the external review at EPA, that receive a score of excellence, then on to the second phase of review, which is our internal programmatic review. And there's a criterion for the programmatic review, which is there, and it's basically does the applicant kind of the applicant's description of the research, how well does it fit EPA's mission. So peer review focuses on the scientific merit of the application, and the internal programmatic review then on relevance to EPA's mission. a ranking then comes out of that programmatic review, and there are other factors that fold in to the decision making as far as awards are distributed, internal programmatic review. So a couple of things to pay attention to if you're interested in the EPA fellowship. Pro undergraduate fellowship has these 2 layers of review as well. And the criteria are outlined of those RFAs that are on our website. I think the slide list shows just my contact information, and if you have other questions, feel free to email or phone, and we'll be happy to get you the information that you need. Thank you.
Some time now for to do some question and answer. We've received a few questions already, but if you haven't yet made your question, please go ahead and do so now. You can access the question in the bottom right hand of the Event Center window. And so let's get started with the first question. Is GRFP targeting faculty members at all? Yes, that's the question.
Repeat the question.
I'm sorry, GRFP targeting faculty members at all? Or is it exclusively students?
It's exclusively students. Faculty members usually have already a graduate degree. So we are supporting anyone who wishes to receive a master's or PhD degree. So, but a faculty member working at a community college who has a BS degree and no master's degree and would like to get a master's degree or a PhD degree, this individual is allowed to apply.
Great. Came in about the GRFP. I applied to the NSF GRFP in 2013. Graduate admissions from my undergraduate institution. I got into graduate school without winning the NSF GRFP, but now I am reapplying to the NSF GRFP. What kind of experience do the reviewers expect for a year as opposed to an undergraduate senior applying?
So you have research experience and started already with a project. So the research statement might reflect also your advisor, who very likely will submit a reference letter, could clearly address your contributions to that project. For example, that you really came up with those ideas for this research project that you work on. It's in general very important that letter writer really states very clearly your significant contributions, either to the research or to your outreach activities, which you might sell in your personal statement. So everything what you're telling the reviewer in your personal statement or the research statement should be reflected by and supported by the reference letters. It's not supported by the reference letters in general makes tests or reviews, or if everything what you claim in your statements is actually as great to describe.
Questions, I'm going to kind of combine them, and they're about non-U.S. citizens or permanent residents. One international student, I often find myself not eligible for many fellowships, though my research is relevant to them. What advice can you give me in this regard? Are there specific tips and scholarships that I should look at? Here is a question, any fellowships for which for DREAMer or DICA students are eligible for? And one read you might explore is the pathways-to-science.org website. Search for fellowships on there. You can do an advanced search, and you can search for the citizenship requirements have several ships hosted by private foundations for which U.S. citizens are eligible. Let Jorg and Brandon chime in if they have any other.
This is Brandon. I'm glad that you mentioned that resource, because I was kind of at a loss as to where to point people. So that's great, and I'm going to take note of that as well. I believe that for most of the federal programs, that's the standard eligibility policy, or actually maybe even stronger than that regulation. I have been in contact with my policy team at EPA just a couple of months about eligibility and non-U.S. citizens, and given the DACA and DREAM Act recent movement, there's something to be done, or should our viewers even pay attention to this? So there's a question, at least at EPA, that we are discussing. I'm not sure when or how it will play out, but at least we are aware of it and having discussions. So eligibility stands and grow, but accredited U.S. college or institution and a citizen of the U.S. Or lawfully admitted permanent resident.
Just can reiterate that. So for the GP, you must be U.S. citizen or permanent resident in the U.S. Yep.
Great. Another question about GRE scores. The question is, are GRE scores required for the GRFP application? I think I add, because I hear this as a common question, how highly do GRE scores rank among the different application review criteria?
We don't require the submission of GRE scores. GP will be certainly taken into consideration by the reviewers, and one common question is, again, okay, what is the average GPA of someone who receives a GRFP award? And we can't really give you that information. I can just tell you it is a very wide range, because you have to keep in mind it is a completely holistic review. That means a review looks at all components of the application package and crafts one idea about the potential of a specific applicant to advance STEM through research or through STEM leadership. And one small point might be the GPA.
Thanks. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions before we need to close out. If anyone has an additional question, go ahead and fit it into the question box. I'm just here to see if I've missed any. Just so they can get the announcement for the EPA STAR Fellowship.
Sure, you can, or I can certainly send that to you. I can also provide that link to you. I don't know if that's the distribution list you send out to, but you can go to epa.gov/NR for National Center for Environmental Research Fellow, and the information for all of our student-related programs will be there.
Great. Definitely send that out, information out. Okay, and then we'll cap it at that. The first one is, how many credits are considered a 2-month period for the GRFP?
So I don't have the solicitation in front of me. I would have to look it up, but you should be able to read that in the new solicitation.
Great. One of the questions, are recommendations or specific expectations for the second-year graduate student applicant, particularly for those who have previously applied for the SFG, RFP, and other cycles?
So if you applied earlier for the GRFP, really read the reviews which you received previously very carefully and try to craft the new application package as a new application package. Don't use the old material. Just take the general feedback from the reviewers and craft a completely new package. Be also aware that maybe the references you used back then might not be the choice. Just reevaluate the choice of your references and ensure that every reference letter writer would be willing to write an excellent recommendation for you.
So before you all leave, we'd like to ask you just a few more questions just to get a sense for how we are help you out. I'll pass it off to my colleague David.
Thanks for another poll on your and first 4 questions. These will not be shared afterwards, just so you know. The first 4 questions you indicate the extent to which you agree with each statement on a scale of strongly disagree, disagree. And the question or each statement is prefaced with the phrase of this webinar. So as a webinar, I better understand the components of applications that are typical of the fellowships represented by today's speakers. I will be able to write personal essays and research statements, request letters of recommendation. I feel in my ability to submit a strong fellowship application. If you can just take a few moments to say what the most beneficial aspects of the webinar were for you, suggestions you have to help us improve this webinar. And to do that.
Well, I just want to thank again our guest speakers, Dr. York Schlatter from the National Science Foundation and Dr. Brandon Jones from the Protection Agency. And we will be following up with an email with a link to all the resources that were presented here on the webinar. So thank you for attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
another 15 or so seconds. Everyone is done. Thanks very much for hanging on to fill out that and rest of your day.